You wake up, you don't know what you look like. Not really. You've never seen your own face, not once, not ever. You know your hands, you know your feet, your shadow stretched long across the dirt at sunset. But the face you carry through the world, the one everyone else sees when they look at you, to you it's a rumor, something described secondhand if it's described at all. This was the condition of every human being who ever lived for most of human history. Somewhere in the Nile. In the still hours before dawn, a person kneels at the riverbank. The current has slowed to almost nothing. They lean forward, and for a moment something looks back, wavering, fractured by the smallest ripple, but there, eyes, a mouth, the shape of a face. This is the first mirror anyone ever had. Water, no one invented it. It was simply there waiting in every still pond and flooded rice paddy and rain barrel on earth. But water lies, a breath of wind, a passing bird. A dropped pebble in the face dissolves. What people needed was something that would hold still, something they could own. The answer came from a volcano. In central Anatolia, in what's now Turkey, at a site called Çatalhöyük, archaeologists uncovered something extraordinary. Pieces of obsidian black volcanic glass polished to a mirror sheen and dated to around 6000 BCE, 8,000 years old. 56 of these mirrors have been found across 6 sites in the region. And they weren't crude. Curator Orhan Shane, who examined the Çatalhöyük specimens directly, described them as highly polished and reflect a sharp image. Someone spent real time on these, leveling the stone, refining it, finishing the surface with animal fat and soft cloth until it held a face without distortion. Here's the detail that should stop you. These mirrors weren't kitchen objects. They weren't lying around for casual use. Archaeologist James Mellart, who led the original excavation, found most of them buried in graves, specifically in the graves of women and specifically high-status ones. From the very first mirror ever made, seeing your own face clearly wasn't a daily convenience. It was a privilege, something you might only truly receive once you were dead. Think about what that means. For thousands of years, most people went their entire lives never once seeing a clear, stable image of their own face. Not as a baby, not as an adult, not on their wedding day, not in grief, not in old age. You could know every detail of your mother's face, your child's face, a stranger's face across a crowded market and remain to yourself permanently unknown. Then came metal. Around 4000 BCE in Mesopotamia, someone discovered that polished copper held a reflection dimmer than obsidian, tinted faintly gold but wider, and easier to produce in quantity. 1,000 years later, by roughly 2900 BCE, the Egyptians were casting bronze into small round discs mounted on handles of wood and ivory. These mirrors traveled with the dead as grave goods, tied to the goddess Hathor, believed to help guide a soul into the afterlife. In China, similar bronze mirrors emerged independently, carried by the Qijia culture as early as 2200 BCE. Different continents, different gods, the same hunger. Solved the same way: polish a surface, catch a face. But even these mirrors were imperfect. Bronze tarnishes. It has to be repolished constantly, and even freshly finished, it renders you in warm gold instead of true color, a version of your face slightly softened, slightly flattered, filtered through metal before it ever reached your eyes. For roughly 5,000 years, this was as clear as self-recognition got. A dim, golden, second-hand version of your own face. And only if you could afford one. It wasn't until 1835, barely 2 centuries ago, that a German chemist named Justus von Liebig figured out how to deposit a thin, even layer of silver directly onto glass, using a chemical reaction involving silver nitrate. Before Liebig, glass mirrors existed, but they were made with a toxic tin mercury paste, expensive, dangerous to produce, and jealously controlled for centuries by Venetian craftsmen on the island of Murano. Liebig's method was safe, cheap, and endlessly reproducible. For the first time in the entire span of human existence, ordinary people, not just the wealthy, not just the dead, could look at a version of their own face that was actually reliably accurate, which raises the real question underneath all of this. If people spent most of history without a clear reflection, how did they know what they looked like at all? The truth is, mostly they didn't, not the way you do. They knew themselves through other people's eyes, through portraits, if they were wealthy enough to commission one, through the reactions on the faces of everyone they'd ever met, through the particular way a lover or a parent described them. Identity wasn't built by staring at yourself. It was built by triangulating from the outside in, and this isn't just an ancient problem. In 1970, psychologist Gordon Gallup ran an experiment that's now famous in the study of self-awareness. He marked animals with a spot of dye somewhere they could only see in a mirror, then watched what they did. Chimpanzees reached up and touched the mark on their own faces, proof they understood the reflection was them, not another animal. Most species failed completely. Human children don't reliably pass this test until somewhere between 18 months and 2 years old. Self-recognition, it turns out, isn't automatic, it's learned, it has to be built. Which means for most of human history, that learning happened without a mirror at all, or with one so faint, so occasional, so reserved for the powerful and the dead, that most people carried an entire life's worth of uncertainty about their own face. So think again about that person at the riverbank all those thousands of years ago, leaning over still water at dawn. They weren't checking their reflection the way you do, quick, habitual, barely conscious. For them, that fractured, rippling face looking back might have been one of the only times they'd ever truly seen themselves. Not a rumor this time, not secondhand, just water holding still for one fragile moment, giving a stranger their own face back.